Cheers to you. You started out as a chef as a young kid in Melbourne, inspired by your mom and your grandmother.
Yep.
And at a very young age decided that you just really wanted to be a chef. What was it about the process of cooking that appealed to you so much?
My mum was quite a strict woman. She didn't let us have everything that we wanted, so we sort of had to toe the line a little. And I'd go around to my buddy's house, who was from an Italian heritage, and they'd have all this interesting food, and my mum was a pretty plain cook. So I'd joke with her and tell her it was her bad food that got me interested in cooking.
Fairly early on, you started appearing on television. How did that evolve, and how have you burnished your brand as a sort of TV personality since those initial appearances?
So someone published a book called London's Finest Chefs, and the restaurant I was the head chef of, Quo Vadis, was featured in this publication, and so I did a couple of morning show segments to help promote that book, and then I started getting asked to do these TV stuff, and it's crazy good money compared with what you earn in a kitchen, and I did a little bit of it, and a little bit turned into a bit more, and my world just sort of took a couple of different turns, I guess.
What brought you to the US?
So I got asked to do a TV show in America called Take Home Chef, and I thought it sounded so ridiculous that I'd take a free flight to Los Angeles, because I was living in London at the time, running a restaurant, and they asked me to do this show where I'd go to a grocery store and invite myself back to someone's home and cook them dinner. And I shot the pilot, and I ended up doing 140 episodes for TLC on that show, which I still thought was a little ridiculous, but it was kind of good fun.
Eventually, as fate would have it, you are invited to be part of Celebrity Apprentice with everyone's favorite presidential candidate, Mr. Donald Trump.
Right.
What was that experience like?
It was like going and playing a game with a bunch of crazy people. And the great thing about it was, as an adult, you don't really get to play very often. We played games. He sets you these ridiculous challenges, and you carry on as if your life depends on winning it. And then Donald Trump fires somebody. It's very funny.
How did it feel when he said the words?
I'm a very competitive man, so I actually really wanted to win it, and I thought that I was getting really close. So I was a little bummed, I'm not going to lie.
What was he like to work with?
I mean, he's an intense character, obviously. We can all see that now. I think what you see is what you get with Trump. He says what he thinks, and he likes what he thinks, and he thinks what he likes.
Talk to us a little bit about some of the stuff that you have going on right now. I know you've got a ton of different irons in the fire.
Look, I've got all sorts of different stuff going on. I've opened my second restaurant, Gwen, in Hollywood, the little place Maude. We opened about 3 years ago.
I know that you have bootstrapped both of your restaurants.
Right.
Tell me about the decision to do it that way as opposed to seeking outside investment.
It's very difficult for a chef to open a restaurant that they own, because chefs truthfully make somewhere within the vicinity of 100 grand if you make it to an executive chef level. But when you make 100 grand a year, it's very difficult to save enough money to open a restaurant when you're going to spend somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million at the very least, which is horrible when you think about it, because who should own restaurants? Chefs, right?
Right.
But unfortunately they get opened by investment groups, and there's a lot of backers, and when you have multiple people coming at it from different directions and saying, well, I think it should be this and I think it should be that, it just never appealed to me. If you're going to open a restaurant, you need a clear vision. So I was lucky enough to make some money through different businesses before I got to the place that I was ready to open a restaurant. So I was lucky enough to do it myself.
But when you start your own business, that you own it, and you're not just responsible for the quality of the food that goes out on the table and of the guest experience, but for the financials, for sort of the totality of the success of that venture. What did you find most difficult about that transition?
Running a restaurant from a financial perspective, from an operations perspective, and being a chef are almost polar opposites. You go into your kitchen and you buy some ingredients and you figure out a menu, and then you spend your entire life practicing your craft, and you have to be competitive with other chefs, so you have to be as good as them or better, so you have to practice that technique. And that's where a lot of chef owners or chef operators fall off. They don't keep their eye on the rest of it, or they don't have a good partner in the business that can help them run it. So to me, it was probably more important to do a great job of the food than it was running the business. If you really focus on the food and focus on your cooking, the rest will kind of happen by itself. The profit hides the mistakes. I could have run my business way more efficiently, but I chose to spend my time cooking, because I figured at the end of the day, if your product's right, your product being the food, then the rest will fall into place at some point.
There's lots of famous chefs who've owned restaurants that have died because they didn't pay attention to the operational side.
Right.
So what was surprising to you on the operational side?
How much time it takes, truthfully. You know, it's not so impossible to figure out. You know, you have to work out what your labor cost needs to be, and you need to work within the confines of the law and make sure that you're doing everything correctly, or you're disciplined for it financially. The multitasking of a kitchen taught me a lot about running a business, right? Like, you have to have something in the stove, you need to be cutting something under a salamander, and still talking to someone over there, and you need to concentrate on all of them, because otherwise something burns. And it's a bit of a metaphor for what happens in the rest of your life. You know, I'm sure people have looked at me and said, God, he's lucky, or he fell in the right place at the right time, or whatever. But the truth is, it's bloody hard work, you know, and it's a commitment. My homewares business, we lost money for 7 years. You know, so you either have to have the arrogance to just keep saying, I don't care that I'm losing money, I'm gonna make it work one way or the other. And at some point you get yourself in so deep that you can't possibly fail, because you're not gonna walk out the back door of it. The restaurants are the same. I've been in the restaurant business now for 3 years. I've lost money every year, but I'm gonna turn it around.
Thank you so much. This has been super fun.
It was fun.